I want to talk to you about 3 reasons why I'm excited about personhood. Number one, personhood is what the pro-life movement looks like victorious. That's what it looks like victorious. When it's all said and done, when God has given us the victory, when pro-life literally is the law of the land, it will look like personhood. It won't look like parental notification. That's good. I'm glad that parents are involved. They ought to be involved. The Bible's very clear about that. But that's not what victory will look like. It won't look like fetal pain legislation. That's good. The child does feel pain. It is just terrible. But that's not what victory looks like. It won't look like ultrasound pictures. That's true if they see the picture of the child, but 90% just refuse to do it. That is great, but that's not what victory looks like. It's not going to look like full disclosure legislation where the woman, the mother, has to know everything about an abortion. And it's true, abortion is anything but a routine procedure. It is extremely harmful to the child and the mother. In turns, it's fatal to the child and oftentimes fatal to the mother. That's not what victory looks like. Jesus says that victory looks like him when he conquers death, hell, and the grave. That's what victory looks like. Yeah. And in my mind, personhood represents what victory looks like to the pro-life movement. Because when it's all done, everybody from the womb to the tomb will be a person. So personhood is unique of all the pro-life strategies out there because it represents what victory looks like for the pro-life movement. Let me tell you number two. Number two has to do with something more personal for me. My son, who is alive and well today, my wife is looking at me, she'll make sure I mention that. My son is alive and well today. Was born in 1984. And in 1984, my son was alive, but my son wasn't well. My son was born a little less than 6 months, and he weighed in at 2.1 pounds. 2.1. They called me in the doctor's office and they said, Mr. Hoye, you got a problem. Your son is just not going to survive this. In 1984, he had a couple of problems. One was the blood supply. The blood supply at the hospital could not guarantee me that their blood supply was not HIV/AIDS tainted. Well, I said, doctor, that's not a problem. My father and I, we could solve that problem. We knew where our blood was. We knew our blood wasn't HIV/AIDS tainted, and we became my son's blood bank. We guaranteed that there would be blood, good blood, from my son. Well, the doctor said, okay, well, you solved that problem, but let me tell you, you can't solve the next one. Medical science has done all that she can. We don't have anything more we can do for the child. And I said, you know what, Doc? I just refuse to accept that. I appreciate it. And it's true, you may have done all you could, but I know a greater physician than you. And this great physician, he can raise my son up. I said, I tell you what, you let me go home and I'll pray about it. And if Jesus tells me that he's taking my son home with him, I'll be all right with that. But you can't tell me that. I refuse to accept that. So that night I went home and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And you know what? Have you ever prayed and not got a word from God? Anybody ever done that? Anybody ever prayed and God didn't say a word to you? I hear you, Flip. I didn't get one. But you know what? I got up the next morning. I'm weak and I'm tired because my dad and I have given so much blood that we no longer can give blood. It's painful for me to give it because my veins collapsed giving so much blood from my son years ago. Well, let me tell you. I made my way back into the hospital and I'm holding my son in the palm of my hand for what may be in my mind the last time I see my son. Last time. At this point, my son is now 1 pound 9 ounces, and every ounce is life at this point. I'm in a preemie ward, and there are parents all over, and there are parents there 1 minute, and there are parents gone the next minute. And when a parent is gone, you know what the life of that child is. That baby's died. And so we're all holding each other's hand, And so they all decide to give me just a few moments alone with my son. And for the first time, I'm not just looking at my son. I'm holding my son upon my hand, and I'm beholding my son. Now, I'm looking at something beside the needles and all the tape and apparatuses around my son. I'm actually looking at my son. I see his eyes and his nose. I see his mouth. I see his legs. I see his toes. I see his fingers. I'm actually beholding my son. And at that moment, God spoke to me and said, Walt, this is what a baby looks like on the inside of a room. You know, I'll never carry one in my room, but I held one in my hand. I never felt like I looked at my son trying to live. I looked at my son and realized this is a living, breathing human being. And at that moment, it became very clear to me what abortion is and what abortion does. You can't convince me that it's just a clump of tissue I held my son. You can't convince me that this isn't a human life. I held my son, who should have been in the womb for another 3 months plus. I knew he was a human being, and I knew my son was a person. Personhood understands that. Personhood understands that there should be no exceptions to what I was holding upon my hand. That it is just simply murder. The Black Folk Life Movement, we just simply call it womb lynching. Womb lynching. Let me tell you the third reason. I won't hold you tonight. The third reason is even a little more personal than that. Between 1882 and 1968, the Ku Klux Klan lynched 3,446 Negroes. Yeah, 1968. According to the archives of the Tuskegee Institute, they were still lynching. They just stopped counting. Well, you know, my great-grandfather was one of those that was lynched. My great-grandfather built a house big enough to hold a family of 14, 12 kids and, 2 parents. The Ku Klux Klan rode in one night with their hoods and white robes on horses with guns and torches. They dragged my great-grandfather out and they lynched him. I won't, because we have children, and I won't tell you what they did to me. But it ended up killing my grandmother as well. My great-grandmother. Well, there's 12 kids left in the house, and they have set the house on fire. And they're surrounded the house, and they're waiting for anybody to try to come out so they can just shoot them and just kill them. So the kids decide that they're going to stay inside the house as long as they can. As long as they can. Endure the inferno, the flames, hoping that the Klan will think that the flames are too high, the inferno is too hot, nobody can survive it right off, and they'll do the best they can. Well, you know what? That night, my great-grandfather was lynched. My great-grandmother was horribly abused. And I lost 6 of my family members that night. Annie was my grandmother's sister. She saved the remaining 5, the youngest of my family. On fire herself. She saved the rest of my family. Now, at the end, Annie ended up being buried in the ground because they couldn't take her to a hospital. They put her in the ground, and they put lard in the ground, and helped her skin stay on. And then they would change her every day. But there's no hospital for us to go to. There's no police we can call. There's no judge, there's no justice. There's nowhere we can go. Because you know what? The Klan hadn't really broke the law. At most, the Klan was guilty of one thing. You know what it was? No, they were just guilty of trespass. You see, black folk were considered persons. We're just considered property. You see, I know what it means not to be considered a person. I know what happens when you start deciding who's a person and who isn't. I know where it's going. When you start deciding, well, maybe at 3 months that's a person. Or personhood comes at some other time other than at the very beginning. When you start deciding who's a person and forget God, let's leave God out of the equation, I know where that's going. And every African American knows that. When you get right down to it, we know. See, we've been there. We understand what it's like to be proper. I'm telling you, personhood understands that. Personhood resonates with me. Personhood understands that child inside that womb is not proper. That child inside the womb is made in the image of God. That child inside the womb is a person because God said so. Not because man said so. Personhood gets it. When you embrace personhood, you are saving the lives of my brothers and my sisters. And it gets personal for me. You're saving the lives of my family. When I look into my family and my African American community, and I see people from around the world trying to bring abortion to an end, I get it. And I love you for it. You see, the truth is the pro-life movement has sort of lost her way. I'm sad. It used to be about ending abortion. Unfortunately, the pro-life movement lost her way. You know, as a slave, church, I don't want to hear you tell me how you're going to reduce the numbers of slaves. You know what I want to hear, don't you? I want to hear how you're going to do it. I don't want you to tell me, church, how you're going to regulate slavery. You know, maybe everybody has to have a license, pass the test. Church, I want to hear how you're going to end it. I don't want to hear how you're going to restrict slavery. You know, maybe everybody can't be one, or maybe only can have slaves in this area. I want to hear how you're going to end it. Well, personhood understands that. Personhood understands that it's not about reducing the number of babies that get slaughtered inside their mother's womb. Personhood understands it's about ending abortion. Personhood understands it's not about regulating the death of children inside their mother's bellies. It's about ending it. It's not about restricting the killing. It's about ending the killing. It's not about some backdoor deal, some under-the-table agreement with the abortion industry. It's about ending abortion. It's about ending the killing. And personhood is the only pro-life strategy that gets it. Oh, tonight you've heard a lot from a lot of different people. I'm here to talk to you about getting personhood done in Kansas.
Let's go.
I want you to help me. Yeah, amen, brother. I want to see it come to an end. I want you to join me. I want to see abortion come to an end anywhere and everywhere it exists. I want you to lock arms with me. I want you to make a commitment I want you to decide right now, tonight, that abortion ends here. It is right here. Whatever you can do, whether it's much or it's little, commit to do it. Whatever gift, whatever skill, whatever talent God's given you, commit to giving that to God. To bring it in. To womb lynching. You do that. You do that. And not only will you have me as a friend, oh, but one day when we get to heaven, you're going to hear, well done, thy good and faithful son. You've been faithful over a few things. Let me elevate you. Let me bless you really good. Enter into my kingdom and into my joy. God bless you.